record, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so let me just pull this up, and I think you'll end up getting, make sure this is the right one. Yep, I just have to shift over here. Perfect. So I'm going to share a brief presentation. I recognize a few faces from 2 weeks ago when we looked at this. So I'm not going to kind of tell my whole writing story through this. I will share the presentation, and you can certainly use it, take a look at it, whatever it might be. But the basic gist of it for me is that from a young age, I was really an invested writer, and everything from what might be termed like kind of sensational stories, right? Like the assignment on the left, to drawing out like maps and plans for, I believe, was like my attempt at a video game when I was a young kid. So, and I think that a key component I've learned is that all of our writing has to tell some sort of story, right? It has to be compelling to us as writers, and also compelling to whoever we're going to have read it. And basically, the gist of things for me is that despite being an active writer in elementary school, middle school, high school, I kind of moved away from it at the college level and beyond. And it wasn't until 2012 that I started to re-engage. And I had a colleague who encouraged me to write a piece with him that ended up being published by ASCD Online. And ASCD is an educational organization. They put out a great periodical every month called Educational Leadership, which is just a really valuable resource for educators. But that kind of reawakened in me my love of writing. And since that time, I've written in a number of different journals, both locally and nationally, and ended up writing 2 books. The first was published in 2016, and the most recent was just published a few months ago. So, and I've wanted to sustain it, right? I've wanted to keep myself writing for a number of years. I had my own blog where I would post, and now I blog monthly for an organization called Smart Brief. So the thing for me, and the thing that I'd share, and I recognize from those of you who are in this space that you are even more accomplished writers than I am. The thing that's always been enjoyable for me in writing is that I get to chart a new course through it. It's a way for me to kind of revive myself, and it's also a way for me to think about where I want to go. And there are a number of different writing outlets. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all this, but I'll share this. Blogs are a great resource, writing articles, writing books, of course. And what's a little different here, if you were here 2 weeks ago, I wanted to think a little bit about the writing process itself and some of what I do. So prior to us engaging in a few prompts in a couple minutes, I wanted to think about like what I find to be helpful as I'm getting set to write. And one piece is the place I want to be in. Right? So where do I need to be in order to write? What does that place look like? What does it have to feel like? And then the space. What does my writing location need to have, right? So there's a set place in my house, right? It's an office where I go to when I'm going to really do anything that's going to require me to do some writing. And I like to have both like my laptop handy, as well as some paper and pen, because I actually find that I write best between both of those modalities. Sometimes typing digitally works for me, but other times I actually want to write by hand. And I also like to have some music playing in the background too. So I like to have either my my Spotify open, right, on my laptop, or have something playing off the radio. Yes, or our Amazon Alexa. That's right. So, and then too, the chase piece is a little bit about what are you chasing, right? What are you after when you write? What story is your writing telling? What are you hoping to get across? And then what are you personally hoping to accomplish? So when I think about getting set to write, those are the three things that I tend to think about and that tend to occur to me. We all have our different plans we take, and those of you who work with students in the writing world likely have your own set of kind of ideas that you share with your learners about what's going to work best for them. So what what we're going to spend some time doing is actually doing some writing, and I'll open it up to any questions that you have or things that you want to share prior. But what we did 2 weeks ago, which was really great, was we gave ourselves a good 15, 20 minutes of just writing time. And if you have of course, right, it depends the frame that you're in. If you were here hoping to listen and didn't want to do more than that, then that's cool too. But these sessions are pretty active, right? And so what I did was I just crafted 3 general prompts, okay, focused on actually planning to write, thinking a little bit about our own writing activities. And so here they are, right? And I'm just going to share them with you. I know you can read the screen, but sometimes it's helpful for me to actually share them out loud. So what are your writing needs when you think of yourself as a writer? Where would you have to be, both physically and mentally, in order to write well? Why do you want to write? Like, what, as a writer, what's your why? And what are you hoping to achieve, right? So what story do you want to tell? What are you hoping to achieve? And then that last one is certainly one that's really relevant, right? I'd ask you to write a little bit about, so far, what have you learned about yourself during the pandemic? What would you say are like your pleasant surprises? What have you been thinking about that's really been very positive? And then what has made you doubt yourself? And so there should be a question mark there, right? But what have you learned that hasn't been as positive, right? I think any situation, there are things that we always feel really good about and things we don't, right? And that prompt is an opportunity for you to tell your stories so far, right? At least through that lens. So the way we did this a couple weeks ago is we took a pause, and I left this up on the screen, and we gave ourselves some time to just write. And so I want to just share with you what's going to come next, so you can think about what kind of mode is going to work best for you. In about 15 minutes or so, we're going to come back together, and we'll break into breakout rooms. We'll partner up, and we'll have an opportunity just to share what our thinking was around those prompts. And you can share in a couple ways. One way might be, if you're going to do this digitally, you can pop your responses into a Google Doc, and then you can share the link to the Google Doc in your breakout room space. If you want to write by hand, one thing you might do, you might give yourself a minute, and I'll just kind of come back and let everybody know when we're getting close to coming back together. But you might take a picture of what you've written with your phone and just kind of save it. And then you can actually upload files in the chat box, right? So if you take a picture with your phone, email it to yourself, right, and then save it, you can actually upload that. And then two, you might just choose to read out what you wrote and share it with the person who you're partnered with, as opposed to sharing the document itself. Right, so there are a couple different ways we can engage, but a good, for me, a really helpful part of writing is also being able to share it afterwards. And I see that somebody put something in the chat, or for some reason I can't pull up the chat window right now as I'm sharing. So if you want to pop on and either, I don't know if it was a question or just a comment, feel free to chime in, and if not, I'll check it as soon as I can get the chat window open. So if we're good, right, and if people have questions, or this wasn't what you signed up for, right, like that's cool too, right? But really, it's a chance just to write. and we'll give ourselves 15 minutes to do that. It's 1:15 now. So figure about 1:30, we'll collectively come back and talk a little bit about breaking up into groups. And then we'll give ourselves about like 10 minutes with partners to kind of share and discuss our writing in whatever format works best. And then we'll come back together and just have a few minutes for just kind of some open conversation. So whatever you need to give yourself some writing space, feel free to do that. And then we're going to just kind of give ourselves 15 minutes to just write around those 3 prompts, and then we'll come back. So you can leave your cameras on, you can turn them off. I will keep sharing so the prompts remain on screen, and then we'll come back together around 1:30. Hi, everybody. How are you? So why don't you give yourselves another minute if you're still adding some responses to those prompts, and then we'll gather back in a minute or so. So I hope you appreciated the 15 minutes of headspace time. I know for me, I've always wanted to pick up on meditation, and I haven't found a good way to do that. But writing serves as a bit of a way for me to kind of clear my head and and focus on myself. So I hope that, and I can tell you, just I'm sure it's much the same for you, but these last 7 weeks, it's been hard for me to get a lot of reflective time aside from like very early in the morning or late at night. And at that point, the last thing I want to do is reflect, right? I want to just like zone out or disappear. So it's been nice to, even if it's for 15 minutes, just focus my thoughts on something. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to take the next 10 minutes or so to buddy up, and I'm going to send you to a breakout space and chat a little bit with a colleague about what you wrote, what you had, how you had responded to those prompts, and kind of what your thinking was. And again, you might share that if you wrote it digitally, you might share it as a doc. If you wrote it by hand, I know this time around I wrote by hand because I felt I needed to connect with a pen and paper. So in that case, you might either share it as a picture in a file, or you might just read it, to your partner. And so what I'd ask you to do is kind of figure out a model that works best for the two of you. You can either share kind of your writing across all of those prompts and then kind of discuss them and ask your partner to share a little bit about what came to mind as they heard that, or you might alternate in those prompts, right? So you might each share your responses to prompt one and then talk a little bit about some of what you heard in each other's writing. Were there commonalities? Were there differences? Do you pick up on certain type of emotion that comes through that seems similar, or that's kind of interestingly different? And so the two of you can decide on a process that makes sense and works best. And I think we've got a total of, I believe, 7 people. So what I'll do, I'm just going to hop in and join a group and listen as we go, and I'll kind of combine the 6 of you into pairs, and then I'll just kind of hop from room to room and listen. So we'll take about 10 minutes just to share in whatever way feels best, and then we'll come back right at about 1:45. And if there was anything kind of interesting you took from the experience, um, whether it be what you both wrote or just in general, thinking about these prompts and thinking about generally what you do to plan to write, um, let me know. And certainly some of this may be of use for those of you who teach literacy, work with students. If there may be some great kind of elements to this that could carry over for your work, or if it's just for your own benefit, then that's awesome too. So I'm going, because goodness knows, right? At this point, we don't necessarily take as much advantage as we should. So I'm going to break everybody up. So let me go down there, and I'm going to stop my share, right? So I can do that. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, breakout rooms. Awesome. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do that. 2 spaces. So I've got. I'm going to do. Okay. And there, hold on. Okay, so we should be good. So I'm going to open the rooms, and you should now be getting an invite, and then you should be good to go.
Well, the timer's off because you went before the timer. Here you go. It's going to say, we went potty.
Hey, look at this.
Yeah.
It ran away.
Okay.
Okay.
Good job.
Can't hear me. How are you, Mary Claire?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Awesome. I just popped right in. Oh, wait, you're muted, Chris. There we go. Oh, okay.
Okay,
You're
good. We're in the midst of hell on earth that is potty training. And she just came in with her pants off saying she went. So we had to make a big fuss. And I'm the only adult home right now. So
I'm actually still trying to find the picture that I took so I could share it, and it is not. My computer's just not liking me today. Because I hand wrote mine.
clearly you've heard by now we're shut down for the year.
Yes, I just heard that.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but
No, not at all.
good luck with student attention right now.
Yes.
If I'm in
Yep.
high school, I'm like, yeah, all right, bye.
And as
If I was a kid, I'd feel the same way. So
yeah.
I'd be like, all right, summer starts early.
Yeah.
Can I have strawberry?
You want strawberry?
Strawberry lollipop.
Yes, I'll get you a strawberry lollipop. Okay, Colin, thank you. Sorry, yeah, she does a thing now where she'll just she'll go a little bit at a time, get the lollipop, and then go back 10 minutes later and let a little more out and say,
It's perfect.
Yeah.
That's
But
cute.
This has been awful. The
Well,
other two.
I used to work at a daycare, and I remember doing potty training, and oh my goodness, I could not wait for the end of the day at the end of that.
Okay.
Oh man, it was definitely an experience that I do not look forward to doing when I get older.
Yes, we went through that with our 2, and happily we're now way past that. So, but you've been through it before, Chris. This is your 3rd, right?
Yes, but
Yeah.
the other two both potty trained very quickly, and it was all easy, and went to sleep quickly, and it was easy. And this one has. We said, "What could go wrong? It's been so easy. What could go wrong?"
That's the exact word. I feel like that's a statement before all of that goes wrong. Because I think that's what my parents agreed on for me, and then they had my sister, and well, they don't have any kids after that.
So I linked it's a Google Doc.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This thing, I
No,
didn't
I don't
expect
know
it
if
to be like
it's
this.
gonna work. I sent it.
I wonder. When you pull up, this is interesting, Chris. Are you trying to do it in the chat?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. First, I sent it. It went to everyone. Then I sent it directly to Mary Claire.
Okay. So did you get it, Mary Claire? Did
Yes,
it
I
come?
see
Oh, it
it.
did.
I'm
Awesome.
just trying to keep. I'm trying to get mine to go. Ugh.
I set it so that that anyone with the link can view it. I just don't know I'm on my school laptop, school account, so I don't know who it lets view. But if I have to take a screenshot, I'll take a screenshot.
Yeah, I have a screenshot, but my lovely computer, who is not even that old, is like, nah, I don't want you to send it today.
This is our lives for like the
It
past
is.
weeks. Like everything works until we need it to work, and then
Yeah, this is actually my first couple of days back. So I'm trying not to mess everything up. Oh, come on.
So I'm going to pop into the other room. I'll
Yeah.
let you chat, and then I'll see you in a few.
She, she's meeting her friend across the street. They're staying their social distancing and everything, but the 4 group of them are together right now.
Okay.
It's hard for them, they're not gonna, no graduation, no prom, it's.
Yeah. All those important landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Jen and Christina. How are you? I just popped in.
Good. How are you?
Good. I heard the end of what you were sharing, and I know it's a tough there's a lot of challenges, and I think for those kids who are at transition points in their schooling,
Mm-hmm.
it will now be incredibly difficult. If you are
Yeah.
moving up to middle level, if you're moving from middle to high school, if you're a senior, it's just a real challenge.
Yeah, she had a rough year. I lost my husband last year.
Mhm.
And
Sorry.
now no prom, no graduate. So she's been, hit with a lot within a year.
Yeah.
And I think too, one of the things that's been really interesting for me is, and I had written this down for that third question. I think I've surprised myself in terms of how generally adaptable I've been. I think I wouldn't have thought I'd be as open and adaptable to shifting my way of doing things as I have been. But one of the big struggles for me, and I think this goes back to what you were saying, Christina, is I've always known I lean towards the extroverted side of the spectrum, but what I've learned is I'm much further towards extrovert than I even thought I was. So the inability to get together with groups of people has been a real struggle for me. It's been like really hard for me not to be with extended family, with friends, and yes, we connect virtually, but for me, it's not the same. So that's been a real challenge.
Yeah.
So are they going to still have these PL is on the go for the rest of the year, do you think, Fred?
So Jen, I anticipated, I think one of the things that will probably start to happen as we shift to like really thinking about next year is we'll probably, right now we run sessions basically from 8:30 in the morning until about like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
So I imagine we'll probably shorten that a little bit,
Mhm.
because we'll need some additional resources to prep for the fall. And then I think what will happen is I think we're going to continue it over into next year in a really modified format. Where we'll have we might do like our morning coffee and conversations, but at an earlier time, and we might run maybe 1 or 2 sessions, maybe that take place, let's say, in the evenings.
Okay.
Like we might do like a 7 to 8 p.m. or something like that. So I think the response has been really positive, and it's been great to have so many voices and have people from across the state. So I think we're committed to continuing it in some form. I just don't know what form is going to be manageable for us, or what form people are going to be able to take advantage of.
Okay.
So that's the thinking.
Mm.
So I'm going to hop back out, and I'm going to bring everybody back to the room in about a minute or so.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Think I'm back.
You never know how that breakout room thing is going to work, right? Like sometimes you just wonder if people are going to end up like off in space somewhere, but you made it back. That's great. So
Well, the notification was
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's the breakout room feature. I've really enjoyed it. I've used it a number of times now. One of our staff members had used it for like a large group training yesterday, and it worked really quite well in terms of notifications and hopping in and out from space to space. So that's a good thing. So any themes that came up in your conversation, whether about your writing or tied to the more recent announcement that schools will be closed for the remainder of the year? Anything that you seem to find was a recurrent theme in your conversation? Oh, hold on, Chris. Yeah, there you go.
Noticed, yeah. I think Mary Claire and I had different views, or different responses So that was interesting. Like we looked at things differently, which is not bad. That's not a bad thing. It's just, it was different prompts and different perspectives, I think.
Cool.
Not conflicting, just not in the same ballpark, I guess.
Yeah.
But we had conversation. That's good.
So other thoughts or things that occurred as you were either writing yourself or engaging in conversation with your partner?
I was saying to Chris that I had actually a hard time coming up with an answer to the third prompt.
Mm.
I learned about myself during the pandemic, and I still feel like I have a hard time answering that. I mean, his answer was wonderful. I mean, it was very enjoyable to read too. But I still was like, it was a really good question, and I think I'm gonna really look into tonight and read and write more onto it because I enjoyed that question a lot.
And do you think, Mary Claire, that it was the type of thing where you haven't yet had the space to like think about it, right? Like you just there hasn't been the time for you to reflect back, or do you think it's a you've thought about it and it's a tougher question to tease out what your kind of surprises or the things that you haven't been as pleased with? If you think that's the piece, is it because it's too complex or you just haven't given yourself the time yet?
When I first started writing it, I was saying how, this is different, that is different, but none of it really related to myself. And that's when I thought it was a little more complex and had to go into it more. So I just want, I think the second thing you said, it was just more into it that I wanted to get into.
Yeah. And I think that's, for me, it's such a great point. That's one of the things I like most about the writing process. It forces me to really dive into questions deeper than I might if I was just responding in an auditory way. One of my biggest struggles is that I'm so used to typing and doing things digitally that I often think my hands move quicker than my brain can. And so I'll type things without even having the time to really think deeply about them. So for me, it's really important to write things out by hand because since I'm not as quick, I at least force myself to take more time to think about what I'm writing. So I hear you there. So other thoughts or questions or wonderings before we wrap up for today?
Christina and I talked about how we're both very early morning people. If we want to write or do something, it's those between 4 and 6 a.m. hours before the rest of the world really kind of wakes up, when things are quiet and my mind is sharpest, because after 4 p.m., I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. So we found that we had that in common.
That's cool. Yeah, for me, it's actually I tend to be a little bit the opposite. I'm a bit more of a like a night operator. So in the evening when people are asleep, if my kids are asleep, if my wife is kind of asleep or winding down, then that tends to be the time where I can do that. So cool. Well, I want to thank you all for joining and giving an hour to write together and kind of think together. As mentioned, we've taken this time as a time to focus on writing and reading. So next week at this time, if it fits into your schedule and there's articles, books, texts that have been on your mind that you've been reading or that you want to discuss, come join the conversation. And we'll have our PL on the go. We'll have our PL on the go placemat of offerings out this weekend to take a look to see what's coming up. So wanted to thank you for joining and have a great rest of your Friday.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.